Whenever there's talk about mindfulness, about living in the present moment, there will often be questions about thinking and planning. Is the aim to never think at all? Should we aim to never think about the future? What about planning for the future? Should we not set any goals? Should we not consider the future when making important decisions in life? Should we abandon all of that and concern ourselves only with what is occurring in the present moment? So, first of all, the aim here is not to do away with thinking entirely. At least that's not my aim. Maybe for some people that's the aim. But I find that thinking is a very valuable tool, and it's very fortunate to have such a tool at our disposal. It can be extremely useful in life to think about things, which includes planning for the future. There are many people who confuse living in the moment with living irresponsibly. They think that living in the moment means to disregard any sort of planning or preparation for the future, or that it means to act without any consideration for the consequences of one's actions and choices. To simply indulge in one's immediate desires, to act on a whim, to be careless and impulsive. But this is not living mindfully. This is just being foolish. The fact is, there are many things in life that require some degree of planning and preparation, and there are consequences to our actions which also need to be considered. Thinking isn't inherently problematic. The problem is that most of our thinking is useless. Most of our thinking is unnecessary and unproductive. It doesn't serve any practical function. We spend a lot of time ruminating about the past, or worrying about the future, or daydreaming, or thinking about things that have no relation to us at all the while neglecting the present moment. We can certainly use the mind when needed. We can use our capacity to think, to analyze, to imagine, and so on whenever it's needed. We can think about past events and experiences in order to learn from them. And we can think about the future in order to prepare. But we don't have to dwell in either. We don't have to ruminate. We can think about these things long enough to assess what needs to be done, and then return our attention to the present moment in order to do what needs to be done. When I plant a seed, it's with the intention that it will grow into something more, a tree or a flower or a fruit. In other words, there is some consideration for the future. Otherwise, why bother? If there was no thought at all for the future, what would inspire me to plant a seed? The point is not to simply bury something in the dirt. The point is to enjoy the beauty and fragrance of a flower, or the shade of a tree, or the nourishment of a fruit or vegetable, all of which are in the future. At the same time, I don't need to obsess about the future. I can give the future enough consideration to inspire me to take action. But as I plant the seed and water it, I can be mindful in that moment. I can give my full attention to just planting and watering without worrying about what's going to happen next, without worrying about whether or not the seed will sprout or whether the plant will grow and mature. I don't need to worry about that. I just need to tend to it in the moment. The idea here is to consider the future and to take whatever action is needed to prepare, but not to dwell on it, not to obsess over it. Once we know what needs to be done, we can just give our attention to the process. which means to be present with the process. Whether you're tending a garden, or learning a new skill, or working a job, or repairing something, or whatever it is that you're in the process of doing at any given moment, you can just give your attention to that process. When asked, how should we prepare for the future, Thich Nhat Hanh would often say that the best way to take care of the future is to take care of the present moment. And what this means is that if you want to ensure that something will turn out well, then you need to give it your full attention in the present moment. Whatever it is that you're doing, by being attentive to it, you're more likely to do it well, to do it carefully and skillfully. But if you're anxious about the future, or if you're rushing to get something done, or if you're distracted by thinking about something unrelated, then you're not really paying attention to what you're doing in the moment. And that's when you tend to make mistakes. That's when you tend to be sloppy in your work. That's when the results are likely to turn out poorly. Or in some cases, we can spend so much time caught up in thinking, in wishing and worrying, that we completely neglect what needs to be done in the present moment. And so we don't get anything done. Even when we're planning, we can be present in the planning. We can decide to sit down and focus on a plan, to focus our attention on what needs to be done, on what steps we need to take, and so on. We can be mindful during the planning process. But once we know what to do, we can forget about the outcome and just give our attention to the work. And if we give our attention fully to the work, the outcome is much more likely to turn out well. So there doesn't need to be a conflict between planning and being present, or between thinking and being mindful. There just needs to be a balance. We just need to know when our thinking is useful and when it's a hindrance. And all it takes to find out is to be more mindful.